So what exactly is your challenge here?
Well, I want to start lifting, but I don't want to get too big.
Now you might have heard this from a new lifter before, or maybe from a female that is looking to gain muscle but not get too bulky. So today I'm going to break it down on why you won't gain too much muscle. Before we get started, comment down below, how easy is it for you to build muscle? First up, genetics and muscle growth. Now genetics are a huge determining factor in the amount of muscle growth potential that you have. Some people are hyper responders to lifting weights, some people are hypo responders to lifting weights, which means people pack on muscle quite differently, and of course at different rates. Everybody has a unique genetic makeup that affects muscle building. So for example, there are different body types. Some people are naturally smaller or skinnier people, other people are naturally bigger people. That being said too, certain body parts might be bigger or smaller for each person. For example, your calves, your chest, your shoulder width. All of that plays a factor in what might be your genetic strong point or your genetic weakness. And there's also different body capacities too, where some people are more so built for running and marathon running and that sort of thing. And then there's also people that are maybe thicker, bigger boned, more built for something like rugby or American football, for example. Of course, genetics doesn't limit you 100% of the time, but it does play a pretty big role in whether or not it might be easier or harder to accomplish your goals depending on your pre-genetic disposition. Genetics play a significant role in the amount of muscle a person can gain, and unfortunately you can't exactly naturally change your genetics whether you wanted to or not. For example, it's kind of like, oh, I want to store the fat in my legs so I have bigger legs instead of storing all the fat right in the gut so it covers up my abs. It's kind of like that sort of thing. Natural limitations of muscle growth. Now, the body puts certain limits on how much muscle you can grow just based on a variety of physiological factors. One being myostatin, which is a gene that helps prevent your muscles from actually getting too big. Some people have low levels, other people have higher levels of myostatin. Again, this is all determined on your genetics. And unless you take an unnatural source, there is a certain cap that your body will allow for. So that's why I'm not worrying about that right now. So the concept of muscle hypertrophy, which is just building muscle, is limited to the body's natural processes. As far as experience goes with building muscle, the less experience you have means you will build muscle at a faster rate, and the more experience you have means you're going to be building muscle at a slower rate. And that is where we bring up the misconception that anyone can develop huge muscles without limits, or maybe to the point where they can't even control themselves when they become too muscular or too big. If you feel like you're learning something so far, or if you're simply finding this video useful, please be sure to drop a like down below. Thank you. All interactions help with the algorithm. And that leads us right into training and nutrition. Of course, proper training and nutrition is a necessity for muscle growth. If you happen to be a person that packs on insane amounts of muscle very fast, first off, congratulations. Second off, to put on crazy amounts of muscle naturally, you still have to train right, at least to some extent. Meaning it's not just moving the weights for most people, it's consistency, controlled reps, pushing close to or beyond failure, recovering properly, and so on. And of course, there are many different types of progressions with lifting as well. Of course, when we start off, it's kind of just, okay, we're learning the form, and then we're just moving the weight, and then you start to progressive overload, meaning you are either adding weight to that lift or adding reps to the weight you are already lifting. And then perfecting that mind-muscle connection as well, where you're really feeling every single rep exactly where you need to feel it. And we can never downplay the significance of a well-balanced diet and an adequate amount of protein intake for muscle growth. That happens to matter a lot. It helps being in a caloric surplus when you are building muscle, but this is something that you can control. Not that you necessarily have to be in a deficit or even a deep deficit, but maybe even dropping to maintenance calories where you are just maintaining that physique and continuing to eat healthy, continuing to lift, might be all you need to stop getting bulky and more so just getting more toned out, more athletic looking. And like I said, that doesn't mean you need to stop training right or that you need to stop eating right. Just control what you do for your goals. For example, if you want to be more athletic, then prioritize your athletic movements. And the whole point of this really is to avoid setting stereotypes and unrealistic expectations. What you see on the social media and movies and magazines are all basically outliers. These aren't your everyday kind of people. There are reasons that these people are in these certain positions. And I don't know if I can exactly say this on YouTube, but some of them might have some sort of eating disorder or disordered eating. One of those specifically being orthorexia. For some reason, YouTube gets a little weird with talking about some of these disorders. But what that essentially means is that they have an unhealthy obsession with eating pure foods or only healthy foods. So I really want to encourage you on focusing on your individual goals and try your best not to compare yourself to others. Comparison is the thief of joy, which I know is easier said than done, but it's something that needs to be said. Just make sure you're setting realistic expectations for your muscle growth. Most people will not build muscle that easily. I think it's better to at least start off with training hard, eating right, recovering properly, and doing all of that first, then worry about becoming too muscular or too big once you get there. But I definitely think you should try to at least get there first before you start worrying about that. And that being said, humans are creatures of progress, meaning we love seeing progression. So when you get to a point that you think like, oh yeah, I thought I'd be satisfied here, the goalpost sometimes actually changes where you're like, oh, I actually want a little bit more. I want to see more progress. So don't hold yourself back from the start, because your goals might change over time as well, especially from now to when you first started. And that's completely normal and okay. So embrace your unique genetic potential, work towards your fitness goals, and sub to the channel if you feel like you've either learned something new or found this video useful. Here is the video YouTube thinks I like next, so be sure to check it out right here.